That's my kind of filth. I love it. Joining me now in studio to discuss the new season of Dirty Jobs.
Well, there have been many that I've said, no, I'd rather not do that, but my only job on that show is to try, right? So if I did anything smart in this whole crazy...
For over 2 decades, Mike Rowe, the face of Dirty Jobs, has been America's working-class hero, a man who showed the world that dignity doesn't come from a suit and tie, but from hard, honest labor. From sewers to oil rigs, slaughterhouses to shipyards, Mike stood shoulder to shoulder with people who do the jobs most of us would never dare to try. His humor, grit, and humility made him more than just a TV host. He became a voice for the forgotten American worker. But now, fans are stunned by a shocking revelation. Mike Rowe has just broken the news that no one expected. After years of championing blue-collar America, the man who built his career, highlighting the value of hard work, is revealing a personal truth that's left audiences speechless. Those who followed his journey know that Mike Rowe isn't one to chase fame or stir controversy. He's always spoken with calm logic and heart, whether about work ethics, education, or the widening gap between those who build and those who consume. But this announcement feels different. It's emotional, it's personal, and it's deeply reflective of everything he stood for. Sources close to Mike describe it as his most difficult message yet. Whatever the reason behind his words, one thing is clear. America's favorite storyteller is once again turning the spotlight on something much bigger than himself. And this time, the story he's breaking might just change how we see Mike Rowe and the world of hard work forever. Before there was an announcement that stopped fans in their tracks, there was Mike Rowe, a man who single-handedly redefined what it meant to be proud of hard work. When Dirty Jobs first aired in 2003 on the Discovery Channel, no one expected it to become one of the most beloved shows in television history. Its premise was simple yet revolutionary, showcased the tough, messy, and often ignored jobs that keep America running. From cleaning septic tanks to scraping roadkill, Mike didn't just narrate these experiences, he lived them. With his trademark wit and genuine respect for the people he worked alongside, Mike gave a voice to America's backbone, the plumbers, welders, farmers, miners, and factory workers who rarely got recognition. What set him apart was authenticity. He wasn't pretending to care. He did care. He treated every worker he met with the same respect he would give a CEO. His curiosity wasn't staged. It was real. Viewers saw themselves in him, the everyman who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty and his boots muddy. Behind the camera, however, Mike's mission went far beyond entertainment. He often said that Dirty Jobs wasn't a show about filth. It was a show about appreciation. It was about finding beauty in effort, humor in discomfort, and meaning in the overlooked. His connection to the working class wasn't manufactured for television. It came from deep personal roots. Mike grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, where his parents, both educators, instilled in him a sense of discipline and humility. His grandfather, a skilled tradesman, became one of his greatest inspirations. Mike often spoke about how his grandfather could build or fix anything, skills Mike himself never mastered, but always admired. As the show's popularity skyrocketed, Mike found himself in an unexpected role, not just as a host, but as a national advocate for vocational education and trade skills. While other television personalities built brands on glamour and luxury, Mike used his platform to promote the value of hard work. He founded the Micah Rowe Works Foundation, which provides scholarships for students pursuing careers in the trades. To him, success wasn't defined by a college degree or a corner office. It was about finding purpose through skill and contribution. But as the years went by, the man who encouraged America to work smart and hard began to notice a troubling pattern. The very values Dirty Jobs celebrated, humility, craftsmanship, and dedication, were slowly fading. Skilled labor was being replaced by automation, respect for trades was diminishing, and young people were being steered away from the very jobs that built the nation. Mike started speaking more openly about this shift, warning that America's workforce crisis wasn't just economic, it was cultural. And while his words earned him praise from millions, they also drew criticism from some corners of the media. He was labeled controversial for questioning the traditional education system and for defending blue-collar values in a world increasingly obsessed with technology and image. But Mike never backed down. "I'm not political," he often said. "I'm practical." That balance of honesty and humor made him one of the most trusted voices in television. Then, after nearly 2 decades of inspiring a generation, Mike's tone began to change. Fans noticed it in his podcast, The Way I Heard It, and in his social media posts, reflections on mortality, gratitude, and the fleeting nature of time. It was as if he was preparing his audience for something deeper, something more personal. So when Mike Rowe recently appeared in a somber video message and said, "There's something I've been meaning to share with all of you," the nation fell silent. For the man who had always found light in the darkest corners of work, his expression now carried a rare gravity, a weight that made everyone realize this wasn't just another story. This time, Mike Rowe wasn't talking about someone else's job. He was about to reveal something about his own life, something that would leave his fans stunned. When Dirty Jobs premiered in 2003, Mike Rowe didn't just step into mud, sludge, or animal waste. He stepped into the heart of America. The show, which ran for 8 seasons on the Discovery Channel, showcased the nation's most grueling and often overlooked professions. From sewer inspectors to snake wranglers, Rowe wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, both literally and metaphorically. But what started as a quirky television experiment soon became a national phenomenon, transforming Mike into an unlikely hero of the working class. Unlike other reality hosts, Mike didn't play the role of an observer, he became one of the crew. Each episode was raw, unscripted, and unpredictable. There was no glamour in what he did, but that was exactly the point. Mike wanted to show that dignity exists in every kind of work, even the jobs most people never think about. Viewers connected deeply with that message, especially those who felt unseen or underappreciated in their own blue-collar professions. But as Dirty Jobs grew in popularity, so did Mike's influence. His calm, thoughtful narration and dry humor became trademarks. People began to see him not just as a TV personality, but as a spokesman for everyday Americans. Yet behind the smiles and witty commentary, Mike was observing something troubling, a cultural shift that devalued skilled labor. In numerous interviews, Rowe has spoken about how Dirty Jobs changed his perspective on society. He noticed a growing divide between people who worked with their hands and those who didn't understand the value of manual labor. College degrees were celebrated, but trade schools were quietly disappearing. "We're lending money we don't have," he once said, "to kids who can't pay it back, to train them for jobs that no longer exist, while ignoring the jobs that do." That realization pushed him to take a new direction in life. When Dirty Jobs ended in 2012, Mike didn't fade away. Instead, he used his fame to start a national conversation about the importance of work, real, physical work. He launched the Micah Rowe Works Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides scholarships to people pursuing careers in the skilled trades. From welders to plumbers, his mission was clear: rebuild respect for hands-on work. Through his podcast, The Way I Heard It, Mike found another avenue to reach millions of listeners. The short, story-driven format allowed him to explore history, culture, and morality in a way that was both thought-provoking and relatable. His storytelling carried the same authenticity that made Dirty Jobs a hit, blending humor and heart with a sharp dose of reality. Still, Rowe's outspoken opinions have sometimes stirred controversy. He's criticized what he calls the skills gap hypocrisy, where society complains about unemployment, yet ignores millions of unfilled trade positions. He's also questioned how media and education often create unrealistic expectations about success. These comments, while not political in nature, have placed him at the center of public debate. Some see him as a conservative voice of reason, others as a critic of modern complacency. But Mike insists he's not interested in politics, only truth. His focus remains on the people he met during his time on Dirty Jobs, the farmers, welders, truckers, and technicians who quietly keep the country running. "I learned more from the people I worked beside than I ever did from any book or classroom," he once reflected. They taught me that hard work isn't the enemy, it's the solution. By the time Rowe became one of America's most recognizable TV personalities, he had built something far more valuable than fame: trust. Viewers saw in him a reflection of something genuine and rare in entertainment: humility. Whether standing knee-deep in sludge or addressing a crowd of graduates, Mike Rowe represented a voice that reminded America of its backbone. After Dirty Jobs ended in 2012, Mike Rowe found himself at a strange crossroads. For nearly a decade, his life had been a whirlwind of cameras, danger, and laughter. But now, the silence was deafening. Despite his success, Rowe wasn't the type to chase the next big show or fight for the spotlight. Instead, he took a step back, quietly reflecting on what the show had taught him and where he wanted to go next. In interviews, Rowe admitted that the transition wasn't easy. "I missed the people more than the work," he said. "It wasn't the jobs I remembered most. It was the men and women who made them matter." Many assumed he'd jump right into another TV project, but Mike's next move wasn't about entertainment. It was about purpose. He began dedicating himself full-time to the Micah Rowe Works Foundation, expanding its reach to schools and trade programs across the country. He wanted to bridge the growing gap between ambition and reality, to help people find meaning in honest, hard work. The foundation began offering work ethic, scholarships, giving students who couldn't afford college a chance to build careers in fields that were desperately in need of workers. But while his foundation thrived, Hollywood seemed to move on. Networks weren't sure where Mike fit in a landscape obsessed with celebrity gossip, scripted drama, and social media fame. He was too grounded, too unfiltered, and that authenticity didn't always align with television's changing priorities. Offers came in, but most wanted him to tone down his working-class image or focus on lighter, less serious content. Rowe refused. For a time, he faded from mainstream visibility. Fans began to wonder, had Mike Rowe retired? Some even speculated he'd quietly left the entertainment world altogether. Yet behind the scenes, Mike was busy building something new, a digital presence that would eventually become his most powerful platform. Through Facebook, YouTube, and later podcasts, he began speaking directly to his audience without network filters or scripts. His posts, thoughtful essays about work, humility, and responsibility, went viral. Then came Returning the Favor, a Facebook watch series that took his message of hard work and community to a new level. In each episode, Mike traveled across the country, meeting ordinary people doing extraordinary things, volunteers, veterans, and local heroes, and surprising them with resources to continue their work. The show, launched in 2017, was an instant hit. It wasn't just inspiring, it was deeply human, yet even that success came with a sting. In 2021, Returning the Favor was suddenly canceled without warning. Fans were furious, and Mike himself seemed stunned. "We didn't see it coming," he admitted. Despite its millions of loyal viewers, the show didn't fit into Facebook's new direction for content. For Mike, it was another reminder of how quickly modern media could discard something meaningful in favor of fleeting trends. But Rowe didn't slow down. He returned to Dirty Jobs for a reboot in 2022, this time as both host and producer, reclaiming creative control. The new version focused less on spectacle and more on the emotional stories behind the work. It wasn't about nostalgia. It was about relevance. The world had changed, but the jobs hadn't. In an era dominated by technology and isolation, Mike wanted to remind people that real work still mattered, maybe now more than ever. Still, behind his determined smile, there was a sense of exhaustion. The pandemic years had taken their toll. Mike had lost friends, canceled tours, and faced public criticism for his views on labor and education. Through it all, he kept his signature humility, insisting he was just a guy with a microphone trying to make sense of a confusing world. The silence that had followed Dirty Jobs had turned into reflection, and reflection had turned into resilience. Mike Rowe had learned that fame is fleeting, but purpose isn't. He no longer needed Hollywood's approval. His audience was everywhere, in the hands of those who build, fix, and sustain the nation every day. But even as he rebuilt his career on his own terms, no one, not even Mike, could have predicted the news he would soon share with the world. The announcement that shocked millions wasn't about television, fame, or a new show. It was about something far more personal. The morning was quiet when Mike Rowe logged onto his social media account, just as he'd done countless times before. But this post felt different. The tone was softer, the words more deliberate. Within minutes, his followers knew something was coming, something they weren't ready for. Mike began his message with a phrase that sent chills through his devoted audience. "I never thought I'd have to write this." The world paused. Thousands of comments poured in within seconds. Had something happened to him? Was he sick? Fans had watched him risk his safety on dirty jobs for years, but Mike rarely spoke about his personal struggles. What came next left everyone stunned. Mike revealed that he had been quietly battling serious health complications brought on by years of physical labor, travel, and exhaustion. "The truth is," he wrote, "I've ignored my body for too long. The late nights, the chemicals, the strain, it all adds up. I thought I could outwork it, but I can't anymore." It wasn't a confession of defeat, but a moment of raw honesty from a man who had built his career on strength, humor, and resilience. He explained that doctors had warned him to slow down, to rest or risk permanent damage. His voice, his back, even his breathing had begun to fail under the stress of decades spent in hazardous environments. "I've spent years shining a light on other people's work," he said. "But somewhere along the way I forgot that I'm not indestructible." Fans were heartbroken. The idea of Mike Rowe, the tireless advocate for the working class, being forced to step back felt impossible. Tributes flooded in from construction crews, plumbers, farmers, and electricians across America. They called him one of us, the man who gave dignity to their forgotten trades. And now they wanted to give something back: encouragement, prayers, and gratitude. But Mike wasn't asking for sympathy. In fact, his announcement wasn't just about his health. It was about a mission. He declared that he would be scaling back his on-screen work to focus on expanding the Mike Rowe Works Foundation full-time. His goal? To create a self-sustaining program that would continue helping blue-collar workers long after he was gone. "This isn't a goodbye," he clarified. "It's a shift in focus. The jobs I've shown you all these years, they'll always need hands, hearts, and heroes. My job now is to make sure those people are seen, supported, and celebrated." His message hit especially hard because it wasn't just about him. It was a mirror to a generation that had forgotten the value of sweat, skill, and sacrifice. Rowe's farewell to constant travel and filming wasn't a retreat. It was a legacy move. Soon after, interviews began pouring in from major outlets. When asked whether he regretted pushing himself so hard, Mike smiled and said, "No. Every bruise, every scar, every breath of dust, it was worth it. If the price of showing America what work really means is a little pain, I'll pay it again." In the weeks that followed, his team announced new initiatives, scholarships, partnerships with trade schools, and even mentorship programs for veterans entering skilled labor. The man who once crawled through sewers and walked through slaughterhouses was now building something far more lasting: opportunity. The news of Mike Rowe's semi-retirement spread fast, with fans calling it the end of an era. But in his eyes, it was only the beginning. He started a podcast called The Way I Heard It, where he shared personal reflections, historical stories, and lessons from his decades of work. It became a hit, proving that even when he wasn't on TV, his voice still carried weight. As Mike put it in one of his final updates, "If I've learned anything, it's that the dirtiest jobs often lead to the cleanest souls. The people I met out there, they're the real stars. I just had the privilege of telling their stories." And so, as the dust settled on the announcement, fans realized something profound. Mike Rowe wasn't stepping away. He was simply shifting gears, moving from the man who did the work to the man who defended it. His message of grit, gratitude, and grace would live on long after the cameras stopped rolling. A fitting legacy for America's most honest storyteller.